Well, each public holiday offers South Africans a chance to relearn our history. Today's Human Rights Day gives us a seminal moment to reflect deeply on how far we've come as a country, but it also brings us key questions. How do we reconcile with our darkest days of apartheid and the racism and inequality that persists to this day? How do we use our hard-fought human rights to achieve true reconciliation? Well, not many have pondered these questions as much as Wilhelm Verwoerd. The grandson of Hendrik Verwoerd has spent years reflecting on his family's legacy, and the Stellenbosch University senior researcher is live with us now to discuss this. Thanks so much, Doctor, for being on the line with us. It must be, I mean, we've had several discussions before, and it's usually on days like this. Does it irritate you, or do you ever feel like you just wish you could shrug off that burden of your heritage, or do you think that it's made you the deep thinker that you are that allows us to look back and move forward?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Annika. Yes, I mean, I had to learn to understand that the name that I carry, the family that I'm from, in many ways symbolize the system we had before 94. So it's not just about me, it's not just about my grandfather, but to understand that as a white South African, I need to face up to what that means today and what it means to take some responsibility, shared responsibility for the legacy, the ongoing socioeconomic injustices we see, the ongoing inequalities we see, to accept that with this history comes responsibility, with the history of systemic socioeconomic rights being violated. I now need to also take some responsibility and not only blame, conveniently, the new government for all the problems that we see around us.
I suppose you and I need to reflect and take responsibility along with all white South Africans. Well, that's my view anyway. But does the present government have a role to play in not upholding the human rights that perhaps Nelson Mandela was considering when the Bill of Rights was so carefully drafted?
Yes, thank you. That's an important question. And obviously, there's a part of me that agrees with you that that is part of what we need to talk about today. But I looked back today also again, revisited some of the historical sites around Sharpeville and what happened at the Sharpeville massacre. And I think what we haven't spoken about when I watched your clips there was that this was, yes, 69 people were killed, more than 180 were injured, many of them women and children. But the reason why people were there was to protest against the pass laws. And the pass laws were linked to migrant labor, were linked to the Group Areas Act. It was linked to racial segregation. So the pass laws was, in a sense, just the tip of the iceberg of the apartheid system. And that system have shaped over generations the inequalities that we see today. So yes, we need to challenge the new government post-94, but we cannot understand the roots of the inequalities we see unless we go back into history. Of course, pass laws started even before 48. It was part of the segregationist system we had, part of the mining labor system. So it's beyond even the Afrikaner-dominated government. You know, I think English South Africans also, white South Africans also have to face that deep roots of our inequalities today. And that's really what I'm trying to emphasize today, without denying what you are saying, that we also need to challenge as citizens. We need to challenge the new government to do more.
The drip-down effect or the culture of apartheid still persists in many institutions, especially state-governed institutions, I find. Do you think that xenophobia is also playing a part in some of the rules and the regulations and atrocities of our past?
Sure, yes, thank you. I mean, if I remember how I grew up, and I remember, you know, the education system we had, the way in which the churches and the media and everybody contributed to cultivate this culture of fear of the other. fear, in our case, of course, as white South Africans, fear of black South Africans, fear of being swamped as the language, what was used, fear of people who look different, who speak different. And I do think some of the xenophobia that we see today is linked to that history of, as South Africans, we grew up in a system where we were separated, where we were confronted with, violations by the state, and a deep culture of fear and hatred of the other, I think, is still with us. I mean, the trauma, as they say, the body keeps the score. It doesn't go away, the stuff that happened generations ago. And some of that is then being projected onto people from other parts of Africa, or people who look different from us and compete with our positions here. But I do think it's important that we have a historical awareness when we grapple with what's happening, even as far as xenophobia is concerned.
The body keeps the score. That's so important. We've seen that with Holocaust survivors. Thank you so much for your time today, and for those important impressions that you bring to the table. It's always very refreshing to speak to you. Thank you so much. That was Stellenbosch University senior researcher Wilhelm Verwoerd. Thank you so much for your time.